So right now I'm just cleaning out all the grease on the propeller shaft. You got these rubber boots. They got little rubber O-rings that go into the grooves. These ones are sitting in here really tight, so I'm just going to leave them there. This one will be for the... Where's it missing? It's missing somewhere. Oh, it'll be for this one here. It's just popped through the boot, no big deal. But the other ones are still sitting tight. So all you do is you basically, there's grooves both on, like on this collar right here. And you just get those O-rings in there. And then on the propeller shaft, there's grooves as well. So for the smaller end, they just kind of go in, just kind of holds it a little tight. You want to make sure none of this is cracked or dry or anything. If so, replace them. They're just O-rings. Like any old O-ring will do the job. Now, as far as putting this together, there is a key that goes inside the one end here. No key on this end. You can see this has a lot more spline to it. You know, the spline on this one probably goes down to about here. Then there's a bit of dead space, and then it starts the spline again. This short bit of spline goes on the output shaft of the motor, right? So the output shaft of the motor will look very much like this spline right here. It's just kind of a bit of a ball joint, actually. Provides a little bit of play. And it would just go in like this. These might not be splined the same, so you can only put them on one way. Yeah, they're splined differently. So this end goes into the coupler on the front diff pinion, but you're going to have an output shaft the same on your engine. Okay, then so that stays empty. On this side, you got this little brass washer that's got a divot. Okay, divot goes up, so you just kind of drop that in there, whoop, and try to get it so the divot goes up. Just kind of like that. Hopefully you can see that down there. I'm not sure you can. And it's going to sit against this clip here, right? This circlip. Okay, but you want the divot up because that divot is going to help hold this spring in position, right? So then you put the spring down in there over top of that divot. And then that spring sits in the long spline of the shaft, okay? And that basically goes over top like that, and we'll key in, and that gives you your front and back play, okay? And the spring basically just makes sure that this ball end can't pop out of your front differential, and this can't pop off the ball end coming out of your output shaft on your transmission, right? So that's all that is. It's just basically tensioned in place, right? So when you put it on the quad, you're going to put this end on the motor first, compress it, and then slide this end into the coupler on the front differential, and then put your boots into place, and you're done. It's going to be difficult for me to film that under the quad, so that's why I'm explaining it here. Now, I just cleaned out all the old nasty grease in there. As you can assume, these things, you know, they don't make an exceptional seal, right? So anytime you got your propeller shaft off, clean all the grease out, put it back together. In fact, for the sleeve here, the coupler sleeve, the grease that was on the spline here was a bit milky, so obviously a little bit of water got in there, right? It's not rusty, there's no chips, there's nothing like that, there's no obvious bad signs of wear on it. So, you know, we're going to run it still, no big deal. But we're going to re-grease it. I'll pack this full of grease, not too packed full of grease, because then you're going to hydro lock it and not be able to compress it. But we're going to put a reasonable amount of grease in there, and on this end, and in here. And I'll be cleaning, once I get underneath the quad, I'll take a rag and I'll clean off the ball end on the output shaft of the transmission there, and put some fresh grease. I'll have some in here anyway, so it'll just go in. And also, is you don't want that grease holding this off of this circlip in here. So you want to just put a bit in there, not a lot, just a bit, to keep out water and help lubricate the system. Okay, So I'm going to do all that off camera and get this into the quad. Putting that in there is really relatively simple. Basically what you want to do is make sure that everything is meshed. After you think you got it in place, just make sure that you're meshed in on the front propeller shaft. Make sure or on the front pinion coupler. Make sure you're meshed on the output shaft on the transmission, because you don't want those just suddenly snapping into place or potentially just popping the propeller shaft out because it's not sitting correctly. Yeah, other than that, wipe off the areas that the boots are going to seal on the various spots, with the grease, because obviously if that's really greased up, it's just going to want to slide right back off. Make sure that you got both O-rings in their grooves when you do put the boots back on. When the boots are back on, they should actually be slightly compressed anyways. So if they're not compressed a little bit, you'll know. And they shouldn't pop off too easily. They do come off relatively easy overall, but it is what it is. Just keep an eye on them for the first couple of rides. What I would do, just make sure that they're still in place. If they're not, then pull the propeller shaft off, clean out all the dirty grease, refurbish it, put it back in. It's a relatively simple thing to do. You don't even have to take tires off. You don't want to. You just get the quad up in the air and do it. So that's that. At this point now, we are going to put the A-arms on. So 2 bolts on each side for the frame, and then the ball joint nut. And I got to remember to plug in the 4-wheel drive actuator as well. So those are the next steps, and at that point we can put some oil in the differential and then put the tires on, and we got a rolling machine again, and then just a matter of putting everything else back together. So I'm just prepping the A-arms to go into the quad there, and popped out the bushings for the bushings, I guess. So the collars for the bushings. This one here, so the one on the front of the A-arm, was in good shape. It's moving back and forth. It's spinning easy. It's pretty clean. A little bit of crud in there, but not too bad. No rust, nothing like that. It's really smooth, really nice. And this one is just a standard collar. It slides back and forth a wee bit, but once you got your outer caps on, then it can't do that. And it's got just seals there. The outer part of the seal doesn't do a whole lot. But it is cracked up. So could use for a replacement here soon, but by there being no rust or anything in here, I'd say the inner seals are probably still doing exactly what they should be doing. Now on this side, it's a bit different. So you can see here, like, this collar is skinny compared to this collar, right? These ones are for the back bushing. The back bushing is actually it's a ball style. So it's actually got a pivotable ball inside there. I don't know if you'll be able to see that with my fat finger in the way. This one, the seals clearly aren't working. Clearly not sealing anymore. There was a bunch of dirt inside. It was seized up. I actually had to flush it with a bunch of WD-40, and I got it moving. And it's feeling pretty good. It's a little rough, but not horrible. It's tight still, though, which is kind of the important part. So it's still tight, and it is moving again. So I was able to break the rust and clean a lot of it out and whatnot. But that bushing is due for replacement. I don't have any. I didn't think of checking them ahead of time to order them. And the A-arm's easy enough to get out of the quad. So I'm going to pack these full of grease, clean up these bushings best I can, or end caps of the bushing best I can. I'll just wire wheel them on the drill press. I'll pack it full of grease and we'll run it. But that's knowing that this one's probably going to fail this season at some point, hopefully near the end of the season, and we'll need replacement, and all replacement pairs anyways. So we'll do that on this side. I'll do the same checks on the other side, and like these end caps, they just go on like this, one here, one on the other side type thing, right? So I'll do those checks on the other one as well, get them packed full of grease, and then we will get the A-arms in the Okay, there we go. This one is ready to go back into the machine. Now we're just going to do the same process with the other one and have it prepped to go into the machine as well. So that's installing the A-arm. This is the right one that I've done so far. I'll do the left one off camera. It's just a little easier trying to not worry about whether or not you can see what I'm doing. Well, basically you have two bolts, right, front and the rear, that are 17 mil bolts. The torque on those was 65 foot-pounds. And you know, use a hammer, a little bit of persuasion, get your knuckles in place, right? Outside of that, really, it's, you know, pretty straightforward. Obviously, like, grease up your bushings and whatnot. I did put anti-seize on the bolts to make it easier when I'm going to have to pull this apart again, especially being that I know I'm going to be doing bushings probably within the year. But outside of that, it didn't call for anti-seize. I just like to use it. Makes it easier to pull stuff apart later on in life. I did put a lot of grease in, so I did get some grease drippage from the bolts pushing it out. Yeah, other than that, like I say, pretty straightforward. The ball joint down here, that is a 17 mil nut, a castle nut. The torque spec on that, there's two. So it's for a D1 or an E1, so a KVF 650 D1 or E1. It says to go with 31 foot-pounds. For a, well, it's like D6F or an E6F. And later it says use 21 foot-pounds. What the difference is, I don't really know. Maybe they went with a lighter ball joint. No idea. So I did 31 foot-pounds. Mine, I checked my sticker on this thing, and it just says it's a KVF 650D. Doesn't say D1. So I just took it as a D1 anyways. So I did 31 foot-pounds. Worked just fine. And then you need a new cotter key. I know it's tempting to use the old ones if you get them out nicely and stuff. Just don't. It's, you know, cotter key kits like this one, picked out of Princess Auto. You know, they go on sale, pick them up, they're cheap, and they got all the cotter keys you'll need for a very long time. So the one I used was the 3/32 by 1 inch. Fit in there just perfect. The next size up was a 1/8 by 1.25 inch. And it was too tight, I couldn't get it in. So yeah, 3/32 by 1 inch, and you're good to go. Or did I use the, no, I think the 1 inch one. Might have been the 1.5 inch. Yeah, not sure. No, it should have been the 1 inch one. So yeah, I went with that one, and 'cause 1.5 inch would have been really long. And then, yeah, bend it over, just, you know, 2 tabs, different directions, and get them nice and tight up against the nut and the remaining threads, just to kind of protect them from anything grabbing them down the trail. It's, I don't know, something I've never really paid attention to, but some people seem to claim it's the best idea, is put your cotter key in from the back side. As close to the back side as you can, so that when you're bending your tabs back over, they're going back towards the back of the quad. Just because if you're likely to catch something with your cotter key, it's more likely you're going to catch it going forward than backwards, because you drive forward most of the time. And so I guess a little less chance that you're going to actually hook that cotter key and maybe tear it out or something. I don't know. I think they're pretty protected by the rim. I think the ball joint sits within the rim. So, you know, I don't know. Not overly concerned about it. I always bend one tab down and under the end of the stud, and one up and around the nut. Anyways, so chances you're going to actually rip both of those out at the same time, pretty slim. So that's it. I'm going to basically follow the exact same process and put the left A-arm in, and you know, if you've done one, you've done both, so I'm not going to do it on camera. Alright, I'll be back when I'm get that done. I'm on the left A-arm now, and I got it bolted in to the frame here. But now we're at the point of doing the ball joint, tightening the ball joint down. And sometimes what you'll get is, especially if your threads are a little gummy, whatever, is this stem actually has the ball part of the joint on it, right? And it'll spin inside the joint and not let you tighten up that nut. So like right now I'm turning the nut here, right? Like I'm spinning on the nut, and the whole stem is just spinning inside the ball joint, right? So what you need to do is basically jack up your A-arm, and that'll seat the cone part of the ball joint down into the cone seat of the A-arm. And usually you can get enough pressure that then you can get this nut to start tightening up. And then as soon as you start pulling that cone down into the A-arm, then you'll have no problems getting that nut torqued right up to spec here. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but like there's no pressure on it right now. So I'm going to just put the ratchet on here, and I don't know if you'll see it on the camera or not, but basically you can just see the ball joint spinning with the nut, right? So basically I can't tighten it up beyond that. So we're going to put a bit of pressure on that and then give it a try. And it started to, but it broke free. So let's put a little more pressure on it. I might have to pull this back off and make sure I'm not cross-threading, because that is tight. Hopefully not. Hopefully I didn't just wreck a ball joint. Might have to clean up the threads a bit, maybe. Well, it's definitely not cross-threading. Might have to clean up those threads a bit. Let's add a wee bit of grease. Might help. I got enough grease on all these rags. Let's just find some of it here. Right there. Just add a bit of grease to that. It's gonna have a cotter key anyway, so we don't have to worry about it backing off. And let's see. And it's still hitting a stiff spot there. All right, let's see if we can get it past. It's holding so far, but it's getting stiff. It started to spin again. I got a little farther, but it's still spinning inside. Let's see if we can get a little more pressure on it. There we go. Nope, got me. Oh, maybe. Sometimes it spins, sometimes it holds. Let's see here. There we go, we got her. All right, now we're just gonna start pulling that cone in to the A-arm anyways. So then we can probably let this back down without issue. Get the quad sitting on the jack stands nice and firmly again. There we go. Perfect. All right, now we should be able to torque it up. A-arms are in. Everything else is buttoned up, tightened up at this point. I just ran the wire for the four-wheel drive actuator. Comes right here, goes to this rubber tie that ties to the lower rad hose. Bring it under your steering arm and then up the inside of the frame right here, inside this plastic shield. Bring it up all the way up the inside of the frame to your plug that shows up right about there. And then just replace the zip tie that was right there. So I grabbed the wire for the four-wheel drive actuator as well as a breathe tube that looks like it probably runs all the way down to the rear diff potentially. So yeah, and that's it there. So now I'm basically we can throw the tires on it, but while I got the tire off and I got all the plastics off, whatnot, I'm going to fill the front diff with some oil. Now the manual says for an oil change it takes 430 milliliters. I think that's 0.45 of a quart. And you want to use the same oil you use in the motor. So I'm using this stuff right here. It's the Motul ATV Expert 4T10W40, MA2 certified. So the manual says basically you can use anything that's like JASO certified. What is it? It's on the back of this thing here. Let's see here. So all of this stuff basically. So API, SMI, SL, JASO, MA, MA1, MA2 certified. It says to adjust the oil. The manual gives you an oil temp chart. And it says adjust the oil based off of your riding conditions. So most of the time we're running -10 to 40 degrees Celsius. So that the 1040 covers that range perfectly. If we were running colder temps, then I'd probably knock that down. Or if we were constantly running more moderate temps, I'd probably do like a standard 1030. The most important thing about the oil, besides getting the right viscosity for your riding conditions, is to make sure that it is wet clutch compatible. So we do have a wet clutch in here. If you were to throw in like a standard oil into this thing, you're gonna destroy that clutch. Basically, it needs friction modifiers, whatever that means, but it needs to be able to build friction. Obviously, that's how a clutch works. So if you put in like a super slick oil, your clutches are just gonna slip. That's all there is to it, and your diff lock's not gonna work correctly. So yeah, you want to use something that is wet clutch compatible. Now it does say it takes 430 mils. However, you otherwise just fill it up to the bottom of the fill hole. So basically once it starts leaking out, you're done. It does obviously recommend that you have the quad level left to right and front to back. Where like we're still on jack stands right now, you know, overall it looks pretty level. So I'm going to top it up. I'm going to fill it right to the top there. And then I'll probably just do another check once it's on the tires. Everything's back on it, and I can make sure that the quad is level. Then I'll do a further check. But I thought for now, just to fill it up, it's easier to do it right now. So you will need, in order to reach in there, I have a long stem funnel right here that's flexible. I'm going to be using that. What I really want and I need to pick up, I keep thinking about it and then I forget when I'm at any store that would sell it, is a small jug oil pump. Like, why not just buy one? I got to get onto that. So then I could just sit here and run the hose in and pump straight out of the jug, straight into the differential, have better control, everything. But for now, the funnel will work. So I'm going to get to that, and then I'm going to throw the tires on this machine, get it off the jack stands. It's right up at the threads. It's right there. So no issue. We're full. So now the drain plug. All right. So now the drain plug here, it has a rubber O-ring on it. Now mine happened to stick to the case when I pulled the drain plug out. And so while grabbing that and feeling around, I could actually feel that the one side is flattened. It's no longer nice and round anymore. So I'm gonna go find my O-ring kit here somewhere and replace that O-ring. Hopefully I got one the right size. And then the manual says put a little bit of grease on that O-ring. I usually just use the differential oil, just stick my finger in there and then wipe it around the O-ring. And then this torques to 22 foot-pounds. Basically just do it by feel, and just once it's snug, that's it, call it a day. But if you want to be very particular, 22 foot-pounds to put that on. But yeah, I don't like the way that O-ring was feeling, flattened on the one side. So I'm going to see if I can find a replacement in my kit, and I'm going to replace that first. And I'm going to put the plug back. So nice thing is I got that nice and full. I got a flashlight in there. I can actually see it, so I know it's nice and full, and I didn't have to spill a bunch out. And there is a slight chance that the front end of the quad's a little higher than what it would normally be. So it'll probably be technically kind of over full when I get this thing fully level. But like I say, well, I'm going to be checking it again once it's fully level and on its own tires and everything's on it, and see where we're sitting at that time. So that's it for that. I'm going to slam the tires on after I find an O-ring, and yeah, that's where we're at. So we're at the point of got the tires on, got the diff full, all that. It's actually not on jack stands anymore. That is so awesome. I did not have a big enough O-ring for the diff fill plug, so I'm running the one that it had. It'll probably still seal okay, but something I need to keep in mind is get a new one for that. But yeah, it's actually on wheels now. So back on all four. It's looking pretty good. Really love these tires, man. They've been really nice tires. But everything's all basically done, with the exception of we still need to do the variable diff lock adjustments. So basically it's up here. This is your variable diff lock lever, right? And then this is the cable coming out right here, goes down into this really long hex nut, which is where we're going to do our adjustments, right? So basically you lengthen it to tighten it up, you shorten it to loosen it off, and that's about it there. I had to put a pair of vice grips on right here on this collar. So right there, that actually holds the threaded portion in. Let me see if I can adjust the camera here to point this out better. Let's do it this way. Okay, so this collar right here, that actually holds these threads here. But mine were all gummed up, and so now that collar is spinning. It's supposed to be crimped to this piece of tube right here for the cable, which goes up to the diff lock right here. So that crimp isn't holding anymore, so basically I just put a pair of vice grips on it for now. Once everything's all adjusted, I can pull those vice grips off. It's not going to make any difference. All right, so I shortened this a lot in order to do the connections down at the differential down there. So I got to extend this a whole bunch, is what it is. And then basically how you adjust this is you are looking for Trying to make sure that that everything's in frame here. All right, so you're looking for, when you pull this back, you're looking for 7 pounds of force, but with the flat part right here, this little section right here, being 20 millimeters from this edge of the grip. So, or 0.8 of an inch if you want to go that way. So basically that flat portion right there, you'll want it 20 millimeters away, so roughly in that position right there, that's where you want 7 pounds of pressure. So you would have 7 pounds roughly there, and then you still have that much play. So they say use a spring scale. I find a fish scale works really well for this. So just hook it on, turn it on. Let's see here. All right, we're on kilograms right now. Hold that down. All right, and now we're down to pounds and ounces. So we're looking for 7 pounds. So I'm basically going to put it right about where my finger would be and pull on it. And like that's right up as far as it'll go, and we're at 12 ounces. Like we're nowhere near enough pressure yet. We should have, oh, it's holding right now. Don't hold. 0 out. Okay, should be about there. We should have 7 pounds, and we have none. So I gotta extend this out and get that going. This hex nut is a 12 mil, and this will extend it. Mine was really gummed up, so I've put a bunch of WD-40 on it and whatnot, and it's moving much nicer now. I have a rough idea how much I actually shrunk this up from where it was prior to doing this job. So I'm just gonna run it out quite a ways, and by doing this, all you're doing is taking slack out of the actual cable. You're lengthening the case, which will effectively take slack out of the cable itself. Now I'm just going to give it a quick feel test. Oh, we're getting there. Oh, that might be it. I'm going to do a quick check. Oh, it might actually be too tight now. So let's do this. Let's give it a real check here. See, now I'm basically just going to pull on this, and there's 7 pounds. Oh, it's really hard because it wants to move around, and I'm having a hard time reading it backwards. So I'm going to pull it this way. Alright, I need to get my tape measure up here. Oh, we're way up to 9. This scale is all over the place. Either way, we're at like 7-8 pounds way up here, so we got way too much pressure on it right now. And too much pressure is no good either, because then that means your clutches could be engaging all the time, and obviously you don't want that. You're going to burn out your clutches. So let's take some pressure out of here. Try to get this camera to sit. I really don't know how I'm going to do this for you guys. You know what, I'm just gonna adjust this. I can't get the camera to sit anywhere that's going to work well. So I'm just going to adjust this, get it all set up. You got the basic idea of it, and I'll show you when I'm done. Let's see if you can make this out on the camera here, but basically what I did was I clamped my ruler at the 2 centimeter mark, 20 millimeter mark there, and basically just as the handle is touching the ruler out at the far end, the flat part is right at the 0 millimeter mark basically. So then if I pull with the scale here, and I it takes a bit. I got to actually stabilize my hand and everything and not pull against the ruler, but there we are. I almost had stable. There we are, 7 pound 3 ounces. So 7 pound 2 ounces it actually stabilized at, held at. So I'm gonna go with that. You know, 2 pounds, a little extra. I don't think it's gonna hurt anything at all. Or 2 ounces, 2 pounds would. 2 ounces ain't gonna hurt anything at all. So that's as simple as that. It's just that easy. You just play with that long hex nut for a bit, and use your scale and your ruler, and it'll get you all set up. And now the last part of this is just there's a little lock nut right there. Let's see if I can point to it right here. I'm just going to run that down against this long hex nut and jam them together, and that'll lock that in place so that it won't vibrate around and either tighten or loosen as you're riding. And that is it. Okay, so oh, one other thing, just a kind of a PSA, I guess, is I know it's very tempting to just run your lug nuts on with an impact on these machines, well, on anything. You know, don't do it. Basically, I'd going through high school, whatnot, I had a buddy that was a tire tech, right? And he ended up having to go do some training and whatnot. There was actually a couple of them, and they were taught, and this was based off of a study that was done, is the most the greatest cause of breaking a lug nut, and this is on vehicles, big rigs, everything, is over torquing the lug nuts. So I forget, I might have called it a lug nut, breaking a stud. Okay, it is repeated over torquing while changing tires and whatnot, and they figured it. The study figured that it was due to technicians just running lug nuts on with impacts, and you know, doing a couple ugga-duggas and calling it a day type of thing. And you know, just over time it would keep stretching that stud, and eventually it'll snap while somebody's driving down the road. So don't do it. You only got 4 on the quad in the first place, so it's not hard to torque them properly in the first place either. As well as you know, you don't want to lose even a couple of them when you're on the trail, because you know that could spell disaster. So the torque spec on these, I think I better check real quick, was 58 foot-pounds. So run them in at that. I'm just gonna pull up my manual here real quick and check. But yeah, just, yeah, don't do it. It's best to have them torqued, and you may even have to retorque them. You know, just because they may loosen a bit or whatever. But it's better to have a loose one than one that breaks, right? Especially when you're on the trail. It's easy to pull out a wrench and tighten it up. It's not so easy to replace a stud out on the trail. So yeah, it is 58 foot-pounds. So torque them to that, and you know, then you're good, you're safe. I have a bit of hardware here left, but this is all due to plastics. Putting those on. I have a couple other maintenance things that I am going to do to this quad yet. I'm going to check valve lash. I'm going to I got a theory that I might have a enrichener on one of the carburetors not functioning correctly, so I'm going to check that out. Oh, and then I just got to put the skid plate back on as part of this job. So I think I'm going to end this video here. You know, if you've gone through all this, you already know how to put your plastics back on. If you have any questions, you know, send them down below. I'll try to answer them best I can. If there's something I missed in the video, you know, give me some pointers, tips, whatever you'd like to see, whatever you don't want to see, whatever. Just be respectful. You know, other than that, get out riding, enjoy the weather. It's actually been too dry here. We actually have OHV ban going on, along with fire ban and all that other stuff. Whatnot. We got some people that are being displaced in a couple of communities. You know, all the best to them. You know, I'm sure hoping that we get this under control and that it doesn't actually get into the communities. You know, but it's not doing well right now. So whatever, we'll wait and go riding when it's safe to go riding. But other than that, you know, if you like this content, I know this is going to be a much longer video than usual, but I wanted to make sure there was lots of detail in there, and this was a big job to do. I do get a lot of comments on how people like the detail that I go into, rather than just skipping and jumping through the job. I like trying to help people. So, you know, I enjoy doing this type of content. I do enjoy trying to help people, you know, save some money, work on their own stuff, you know, be self-sufficient, stuff like that. So, you know, throw down some comments. Let me know what you think of this. Like I say, it was a very long video, but I think all the detail and whatnot is worth it. Other than that, hit the subscribe button if you like it. Hit the like button if you like it. It'll get other people to see it. And yeah, other than that, get out riding. Have a good day. Thank you for watching.